Hey everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, come on in. So I'm here to talk about James and Jennifer Crumbly. They are the Oxford mass shooter parents. So we already know that he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. This was about a week ago. So his case is over, but we can recall in his sentencing, he was allowed to speak. And what he said was he did this on his own. Nobody could stop him. And his parents, they weren't aware of his planning and what he was going to do. So I think that was a setup for the parents' case to dissolve them of responsibility, but I don't buy it. We all have responsibilities when we're parents, and we have to know what our kids are doing, and we have to be involved and responsible for them, and take care of them and their needs. So I don't buy into it, but we're going to talk about it. So let's get to the first article. We have two articles that's listed on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. The first one is from WDET.org. It's dated December 14, 2023 by Quinn Kleinfelter, and it's titled Judge Weighs Whether to Hold Simultaneous Trials for Ethan Crumbly's Parents. Okay? And it starts off, an Oakland County judge is weighing whether to hold simultaneous, separate trials for the parents of the teen who unalived students at Oxford High School. Prosecutors charged Jennifer and James Crumbly with involuntary manslaughter, accusing them of ignoring their son's plea for counseling and instead buying him the gun he used to unalive four classmates at Oxford High School 2 years ago. Michigan Judge Kwame Rowe sentenced Ethan Crumbly to life in prison without the possibility of parole last week, following hours of heart-wrenching statements by survivors and families of the victims. So I actually have a video of some of the victim impact statements at Ethan Crumbly's sentencing, and I also have Ethan Crumbly's statement and the judge's comments to Ethan Crumbly, okay, at his sentencing. So you can check that video out. In court on Wednesday, Oakland County Circuit Judge Cheryl Matthews ruled that some of the evidence put forth by the prosecution, including Jennifer Crumbly's alleged extramarital affairs and evidence of her son torturing baby birds, could not be used against her in the upcoming trial, calling it irrelevant to the case and adding that the bird evidence is likely to inflame the passions of a jury and cause them to undoubtedly judge Mrs. Crumbly for the heinous acts of her son. Okay, so I did a video about this as well. I think it's an excellent video. Again, check it out. You can check it out on the Hidden Horror Facebook page or the Hidden Horror YouTube page or on Twitter, okay? Um, it's listed everywhere, okay? The couple requested separate trials last month after new evidence surfaced that attorneys said could pit the parents against each other. Which of their trials will come first, or whether the cases will be heard simultaneously, remains uncertain. Judge Matthews reminded Jennifer Crumbly in court that she and her husband, now her co-defendant, are no longer on the same team. Do you understand that both your attorney and your co-defendant's attorney have indicated that there is now a conflict of interest between you and your co-defendant? Matthews said, to which Jennifer Crumbly replied, yes. Attorneys estimate the trial for each parent will take between 2 and 3 weeks. So if you guys remember in the beginning, when they initially were arrested, the judge went through a very lengthy process of questioning both James Crumbly and Jennifer Crumbly to let them know that there could be a conflict of interest, either sometime soon in the beginning when evidence is coming out and everything, and you know the direction of the prosecution, or further along. I anticipated, in all honesty, that there was going to be a major issue because they're being tried together and working together to beat these charges. However, there's culpability that is going to be different for each person on the fact that they handle Ethan very different. For example, there were times when Jennifer Crumbly wanted to see her horse, and allegedly she would take Ethan sometimes, but she also talked allegedly to her coworkers about Ethan, about his personality, how he was doing in school, and his behavior allegedly. Now, for James Crumbly, we don't know those things about him. We don't know that he knew of behaviors, he knew of issues, he saw his friends, his coworkers, and expressed that. But we know with Jennifer, she did do that. She went to work, she talked to coworkers, she expressed his issues. And if she could express his issues to them, those were all indicating factors that she knew there were major problems where sometimes allegedly she didn't want to take him. That it was easier to move forward in life without taking him to things, letting him stay at home, letting him stay back. So allegedly, when this is identified for Jennifer, it's not the same for James. And if it was, they have no evidence of it. However, with Jennifer, they do. So I knew early on this is going to be a problem because Jennifer, in her writing, in her advising Ethan, it was one point, I've said this before, where she told him, hey, you need to learn how to get away with this so the school can stop contacting me. You know, they called me, they left me a message. I didn't call them back. It's showing how she minimized his behavior, how she was made aware of it and she didn't do anything about it. She didn't correct it. She actually advised him to get away with it better, to find ways to get out of it so the school wouldn't contact her so she's not bothered. Whereas with James, you don't have any indicators of that. So clearly, testimony wise, if you're putting up witnesses, if you're providing text messages, if you're providing people to state what happened, what they know, they have much more evidence really against Jennifer to show the level of neglect, to show how you knew of behaviors but you didn't do anything about it. Like, for example, the text messages where Ethan was texting Jennifer and she wasn't responding. And I think it may have even been at a point where she said, hey, contact your dad, or she didn't respond at all. Or he would say, hey, when are you coming home? Can you, contact me? Can you write me back? Whereas they don't have the same level of messages with James. I didn't think it was a good idea to pair the parents working together because the culpability, it is the same. However, there's just not that much evidence that I've heard or seen against James, whereas there is a lot of things against Jennifer that they can prove, they can document. James, he also could have taken Ethan home the day of the shooting. He was there. I believe he worked doing like deliveries. So I'm not going to say the company, but he was doing deliveries and he went back to work. He just took another delivery. So, of course, it's there. However, it's just not the same level. And I think even the expectation with Ethan kind of going to his mom and texting his mom, even though dad should be there, he should be intervening, he should be taking over those conversations and showing and demonstrating how he should be as a young man. However, it's just not the same level of evidence. Way more evidence against Jennifer. And I think the split should have always been there. And I don't think they thought that through because the two attorneys they have, I believe they came from the same law firm in the beginning. And they may still have the same attorneys now, they just have separate interests. So there's some kind of evidence that's going to pit them against each other. So we will see So they requested separate trials. Now they could have separate trials or they can have simultaneous trials, but they're treated as separate. So they will have questions from their attorney and then questions from the other attorney. So their trials will be going on at the same time. It'll be complicated, but it can be done. Or they can just do them two separate trials. So I think it's best for the dad's interest, excuse me, to do a separate trial. So let's keep going. Judge, okay, so we finished that article. Let's go to the second article. Let's get right to it. Okay, let's knock it out. This article is from freep.com. It's dated December 13th, 2023. It's by Tressa Valdez, and it's titled Crumbly Mom Spared from Salacious Past Being Used Against Her in School Shooting Trial. 5 days after their son was sentenced to life in prison, the parents of the Oxford school shooter are due in court Wednesday morning for a hearing regarding their upcoming historic trials, with the mom recently getting a dose of good news. The judge has ruled that Jennifer Crumbly's alleged extramarital affairs will not be admissible as evidence against her, nor will her son's bird torture hobby, which included the teenager mutilating baby birds and storing a bird's head in a jar under his bed. Oakland County Circuit Judge Cheryl Matthews held that the so-called bird evidence is irrelevant, but noted that even if it were relevant, it is unfairly prejudicial. Prosecutors had hoped to use the bird evidence against Jennifer Crumbly, who, along with her husband, James, are the first parents in America to be charged in a mass school shooting. The couple have separate trials on involuntary manslaughter charges for buying their son, Ethan, the gun that he used in the massacre and not disclosing that to the school when they had the chance to. And what they're referring to, they had a meeting at the school because that day, the day of the shooting, Ethan had drew some very disturbing pictures. And when they came to the meeting, they came separately, but they did not disclose to the school that they had purchased Ethan a gun. They never disclosed that to the school. And at the time of the meeting, Ethan actually had the gun in his school backpack. And of course, he didn't tell them that he had the gun either. And just later, a little bit of time later that same day, he did the mass shooting. Okay, so let's continue. Mom's knowledge of troubled son's bird behavior. From the get-go, the prosecution has laid much blame for the tragedy on the Crumblys, portraying them as selfish parents who cared more about their horses and getting drunk than taking care of their troubled son. Specifically, the prosecutors allege the parents ignored a child who was spiraling out of control and hallucinating, and instead of getting him help, they bought him a gun, which he used to carry out the November 30th, 2021 massacre. As for the bird evidence, the prosecution disclosed new details about Jennifer Crumbly's knowledge of her son's bird interests. For example, on May 3rd, 2021, Ethan Crumbly took a picture of an unmutilated bird and posted it on his Instagram page with the following text: "How do you do, fellow bird?" A month later, his mom responded, "Dead," with an emoji of a person with hands raised up. Similar pictures of the same bird in a nest were found on Jennifer Crumbly's phone. The prosecution wrote in a December 7th filing, arguing the jury needs to see a complete picture of the bird evidence at the mother's trial. The prosecution also wanted jurors to know about the photograph of a bird's head in a jar that Ethan Crumbly took on May 15th, 2021. But the judge said no, granting the wish of the defense, which had previously argued. The Byrd evidence is so extremely disgusting, sickening, and appalling that its admission would certainly inflame the passions of a jury. The jury will undoubtedly judge Mrs. Crumbly for the heinous acts of her son, which she knew nothing about, defense attorney Shannon Smith wrote in a previous filing. Evidence that will and won't be allowed. Smith also expressed concern about the prosecution using as evidence an alleged affair by the mom when Ethan was 6. The judge previously ruled an affair the mother had cannot be used as evidence in her trial. But the prosecution has talked of a second affair it discovered by the mom when Ethan Crumbly was 6, and the defense feared it may bring it up at trial, so it asked for clarity. The judge concluded no affairs would be admitted as evidence, nor would the parents' messy house, alcohol, and pot use in the home, their son's internet searches, and a Nazi coin he kept. So in my prior video talking about Jennifer Crumbly, I've already expressed to you that to me it was a culmination of so many behaviors. It was not one thing. And whether it had been um, her lack of spending time with him, lack of responding, lack of being there when she had did other things, lack of her showing up, lack of her coming home, lack of her taking him to get uh, some therapy, counseling when he asked for it. He asked for it. Um, just so many things. To me, it was not a one issue, it was a multiple of things that led to him being alone, having so much free time to himself, being able to dive deep into this mindset of wanting to harm the other kids at school. His diary entries, so many thoughts, constant thoughts of anger, of violence, um, the idea of him being able to connect to other people that had a like mind, similar interests, that was more accepting of his diabolical pictures and torturing the baby birds and things like that. It allowed him to develop into to this person, the mass shooter. Okay, let's keep reading. But she will allow evidence about the time and money the Crumblies spent on horseback riding and their son playing violent video games. More recently, the judge also admitted as evidence an Instagram account by Ethan Crumbly that his mom followed. While the shooter kept multiple Instagram accounts, one included a photo of the GUN that his dad bought him during a Black Friday shopping trip in 2021, just 4 days before the shooting. After getting his GUN, Ethan Crumbly took photos of it and posted it to Instagram, writing, "Just got mine. New beauty today, 6 Sawyer 9mm." His mom had access to that account. 4 days later, after his parents were summoned to his school over a troubling drawing he had made in math class, Ethan Crumbly emerged from a bathroom and opened fire with his new GUN. The prosecution argues that the Crumbleys, more than anyone else, could have prevented that shooting had they just disclosed to the school that they had bought their son a GUN days earlier. But they withheld that information after being shown a drawing their son had made of a GUN, a bleeding body, and the words, "The thoughts won't stop. Help me." The couple asked whether their son could be returned to class, went back to their jobs, and promised to get their son help in the coming days. The Crumbleys maintained they had no way of knowing their son would carry out a school shooting and that the GUN at issue was safely stored. Ethan Crumbly, who was 15 when he committed the shooting and later pleaded guilty to all the charges, did not ask for leniency at his sentencing last week. Rather, he told the judge to give the victims what they asked for and that only he, no one else, was responsible for the tragedy. The teenage killer also made a disclosure that could help his parents, whom prosecutors say engaged in gross negligence that contributed to the deaths of the four slain students. "We are all here because of me today, what I did. I could not stop myself, Crumbly told the judge at sentencing. My parents did not know what I planned to do. They are not at fault. I think that was strategic. As I said at the end of that video, I do not think that was the end of hearing Ethan. I don't know if they're going to try to get Ethan to testify either for the prosecution or the defense, but it does not feel like it's the end of hearing from Ethan Crumbly. Again, I do feel primarily, if I'm just speaking about Jennifer, I believe that she knew, I believe, when I say knew, I believe that she knew a lot of his anger, how he was prone to violence, him drawing the violent pictures. I'm not sure if she knew about his journal, but I think that she knew her son. She knows her kid. I just think that she didn't handle it properly. She ignored it. She did what she wanted to do, what was best for her. She spent time enjoying herself, her life. Some people don't invest in their kids. I can't speak so much to James Crumbly. I know the charges are equally against both of them, but I have not heard a lot of evidence about James. I know it was at one point, but Jennifer told Ethan, like, well, I'm not home, but where's your dad? Like, call your dad, contact your dad, something like that. But I don't hear a lot of evidence against James, but more so against Jennifer. So overall, as I said before, I do feel, because it's involuntary manslaughter, I do feel that Jennifer is guilty. Now, for James, I'm going to have a wait and see for the trial, because now that the prosecution is being separated, I think that is going to matter for James. I'm not sure how much negligence they can prove against James. I know that they can prove that he didn't properly store the gun, to keep it safe from Ethan having access. And I know the day of the mass shooting, he did not take Ethan home or take him to receive some counseling that day. And then lastly, I know that he did not disclose that Ethan had a GUN, that he purchased Ethan a GUN. So those are the 4 possible things. The last big thing being that one conversation that I can recall where Jennifer texts Ethan like, hey, go find your dad. Like, where's your dad to help you with this issue? It looks bad on her, but it kind of looks bad on him if they're not communicating, and maybe dad is not around also. And that does not mean he wasn't working. I don't know, but I'm sure at least those 4 things are things that I recognize with James. But with Jennifer, it's a lot more. It's a lot more. So we will see, right? We will see. We will see. So the trial is January 2024. It's coming up. We just got a few weeks, right? And they're saying the trial won't take but a few weeks. So they're going to wrap this up probably by the end of February. And we'll know where their fate stands. So I will definitely keep you posted. The not so much. I'm going to do the verdict, and I may go over some of the court testimony if it's something new that we're not aware of. Okay. So thanks for checking out this video. I hope to see you in a future video. And please check out my playlist involving Ethan and involving James and Jennifer Crumbly also, okay? Remember, please be safe, be well, be smart, my friends. See you in the next video. Take care, friends. Be well.